All right. So everyone has submitted a barrier project, and the whole purpose was to kind of get you used to creating assets that could be thrown into a level that's already been pre-scaled, and we're utilizing real-world scaling, and that's why in this particular project I had you guys really focus on making sure that your precision was justified. In this, we utilize the measuring tape, and the measuring tape allowed us to make sure that when we did a cut or we were putting notches or holes, they were exactly where they need to be, based off of the technical schematics for this particular lab project. Now, as I'm looking at these, some of the things that I noticed is kind of a workflow issue, and I figured this would be a great time to talk about kind of workflow etiquettes and just kind of making it a little easier for yourself. So I'm going to kind of show you a couple things when it does with layout, and unfortunately, Oliver, I'm pointing you out on this. I noticed a couple of you guys do this, so hopefully this will make make things easier. So what I see is a lot of this, especially when dealing with a four-window process, is grabbing this and dragging it up here, which is kind of, it works, but you end up wasting a lot of time going back and forth. So the nice thing is that Max developed a process that allows us to customize our window layouts. To get to that, if it's not over here already, if you right click anywhere up here on the actual toolbar, and I right click right there, and I go to brain fart, and I go to viewport layout tab, what it should do is it should bring up a viewport. Now, this particular one looks like someone grabbed it and moved it, but typically it ends up being right here. Now on here you can see that there's a default 4x4, which gives you, your 4 tradition areas. If I click on the little arrow, you can see that there's different layouts that you can utilize. So let's say if I wanted a 2x2 like this, or on the side, or vice versa, I have that option. Or if I can do this to where it gives me more maxability for the perspective, and then I still get my top, my front, and my left. And this kind of helps with workflow because you can still grab and minimize that and still create that. So I think just utilizing that in itself creates a better workflow rather than trying to, grab all 4 and move it. So you can see, again, you can customize and create something that works for you. Another thing you have to be concerned with is if I hold Alt and then try to rotate, what happens is that window is no longer a 2D window. So before it was top, now it's orthographic. And so orthographic, you can see, you lose a lot of that 2D fundamentals behind it. So to convert it back to the top, you hit T on your keyboard, and that will go ahead and reproduce it. So just be mindful that when you're utilizing or working within this 2D, that if I just simply utilize my my middle mouse scroll, so if I hold it down, I can pan around, or if I zoom in, or if I actually turn it, or not turn, but scale my mouse wheel, then I'm able to zoom in and zoom out. So these are just a couple things that will help you out. So again, don't use Alt for these. Use Alt for this one right here, your perspective. By doing that, it's going to minimize a lot of issues, especially if I'm trying to come in here and work. So if I zoom in and work in this aspect, I'm able to easily do that. Another thing is that you want to, especially if you're working on something like this. So this is the very first one, and they're just box. You always want to make sure that you do name your barriers. This will save a lot of headaches later on. Hopefully everybody went through and made sure that when you created them that you selected all the faces and made sure that there's no groups. So right now this actually has a lot of groups on there, so I'm just going to clear it all. And you can see now clearing them, what we have is we have a lot of faceted faces. So again, this is something that I didn't require, but I'm just going to show you so you can kind of prep better later on. What we're going to do is I'm going to kind of select these areas real quick here. And all this does just helps clean up your model a little cleaner, even though I said the double negative. But alright, so what I can do is, let's say I wanted all of these faces to be smooth. Now I could use smoothing groups, but also I have another option here. So if I come up here to modeling, which is under your ribbon, and I come over here to smooth, we can see that I can go ahead and smooth selected. And what that will do is it will go ahead and smooth out those faces of that. So now you can see it's smooth compared to the other ones. That's just something you can do quickly per object. And this just allows you to quickly fix any smoothing. Another way, which I'll do on the other one, or another one I should say, is utilizing smoothing groups. But that's only if you're utilizing any type of like smooth modifier or anything like that. Again, this just allows us to smooth selected, and now we have two smooth sides. So it gives you a cleaner look on both sides now. There you go. And then you can do the same thing for internal too on this one. So again, just small tools that can help the outlook of your object. Go over here, go smooth selected, hit it, and now you can see that now has a smooth to it. Alright. And then when I do symmetry, we can see that it's applied for both. So when you render it out, you can see it's smoother than these other ones. Another thing is making sure that these are ready to be imported into Unreal. Now, this is obviously very specific. You want to make sure that you do have some distance between each object for this to work, and when I drop it in, I'll show you why. A lot of times when we're utilizing layouts, or when we're prepping, especially something like this, let's say with Inside Max or Maya, I decided to go ahead and create a level utilizing buildings and things like that. Now, the problem is that if I create a box and then I start, making doors and making interiors, making the box hollow so the player can walk in, when I import it into Engine, it's going to recognize it as one whole box. So it actually puts a collision box around it. And what I've done is I've made this little script that actually will create a box based off of this selected object here. So I've just wanted to kind of show you this real quick. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put an edit stack poly on this, and I'm going to select all the faces. You can see them selected there, and then I'm going to go ahead and run my script. This is kind of the nice thing about being a tools programmer or a technical artist, is that you can create stuff like this. And what it does, it creates a bounding box for me based off of what I've just selected. So if I look, my bounding box should be right there. And it's invisible. So let me show you a different way. I don't know why it didn't work. So let me drop down to this, and I'm going to select it this way. Okay, so everything's selected there. I'm going to go ahead and run my script. And that's what I was looking for, that thing right there. So now what you can see is it's created a secondary box, and only on half of it, because that's the half I had selected. But you can see that I can grab this and bring it down here. And then this allows me now to kind of create a box. So I'm going to purposely come in here and add a cut to it, just so you can see what happens if I try to match the shape of this object. So we're still utilizing the box here. And this will give me a cleaner collision doing it this way. And also, if I wanted to really have this get affected, I would end up coming here and creating multiple boxes like this. So I'd end up doing 1, 2, 3, so that way we can actually put forklifts under there. But just to box it out, let's create this real quick here. Alright, so I'm going to go 2 there, and let's bring it in and slide it over. So you end up creating that right there. Similar to what we already have. So let's go negative. Let's go 48. So they're a little closer. And that works. Okay. We'll do very similar to what we do is create this. And again, so what I'm doing is I'm actually boxing out that geometry. This would be the low poly version, obviously, of this object, and you can see that easily I can create what I need for this now. Okay, just grab that, cap that side, and then we'll cap that side. So when I bring in an engine, we'll be able to look at this and see how effective this was by doing something like that. And I obviously would do the same thing for the other side now too. And it looks like this one's thicker. Okay, go ahead and delete these. Actually, if I select all of them in Bridge, you can see that it doesn't work like if I just had 2 of them selected. So, and something like that, then I still have to go through the process. Because I've showed you before, if I select 2 faces and bridge them, it'll go ahead and bridge all the way through, just like up here on the cylinders. But something like this, you can't do that. Oops, wrong way. So we're going to go ahead and actually, let's cap that instead. So that way I know it, I don't have to worry about it. Okay, so there you go. So that takes care of that shape in itself. And then let's do one more. So let's do the one right next to it. Again, then drop down to polys, select the faces, run my script. And then you can see here, based off of the angle, because it's going to create the UVs based off of the local axis. Because this has been rotated, we end up with that type of issue. So let me find one that's straight based off the original. Actually, it doesn't look like it. This one does look like it. So we'll use this one. Drop down, select the faces, run the script. There we go. And then all I'm going to do is just select that one and then pull it out so it fits the whole thing, like so. Alright, so if I remember where that's at. Okay, now that I have all that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select everything. I'm just going to throw a generic texture on there. And I've already introduced you to textures, so you should have a good idea of what these are. Okay, and then I'm going to change the color so I know exactly what's what. Make these just darker. There we go. And again, we're just utilizing just a simple texture. I'm not really worried about adding any other textures or anything like that. So it's just a color change. Okay, now that those are all done, I purposely made it so like some of them won't have facet or will have facet faces, so we can see the difference between these two. I guess it would be a good time to show the other thing, which was this one. I just selected the faces and did a smoothing group. If I do, move this out of the way real quick. So if I come in here, let's isolate this. So if I come in here, watch what happens when I do a smoothing group. So smoothing groups work in this aspect. Right here, once it claps everything, we have a polygon smoothing group, and that's with obviously having your polygons turned on. You can see all these groups. As I select them all, you can see that we have multiple smoothing groups assigned to each side. Okay, and I'm going to select the other side real quick. So you can see we have 3 smoothing groups there, which is unnecessary. Go and grab all that. Careful on moving things. And that's why we always use Q, which is your select object. That makes it so you don't accidentally move things. Alright, so now that that's set, I'm going to go ahead and clear that. I'm just going to send it to 2. So that group is all 2. This group will be 1. A lot of clicking going on here. So nothing there, so we'll make that 1. You can see that that one has 3 groups. Clear all, make it 1. And then on the top here, we'll make this 3. Okay, selecting that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the top and the bottom here. Okay, and I'm going to skip these on purpose. Make these. So again, we have 3 there. Clear all, make that 3. And then these sides, these can be 1, which it looks like they're 1 and 2. Clear all and just make them 1. And then inside here, so this is 2. We can make sure that these are all 1. And it looks like there are 3 different smoothing groups in there. So there's 3 smoothing groups. Clear all, and we'll make it 1. So we end up having a total of apparently I missed some because, let's see, we'll select by group. Let's go 7. Oh, my bad. So these will be, we'll make them 4. So clear all, hit 4. Okay, let's see if there's any others. So I should have 1, 2, 3, 4. So select 4, perfect, 3, 2, 1, etc. So now when I select everything, there you go, perfect. 1 to 4. So now with that selected, what happens is it gets copied over, but what I can do before copying it over, I can apply a mesh smooth. We've already talked about kind of what mesh smooth does for us. Mesh smooth will go ahead and average everything out, but what we can do here is we can specify exactly where we want this to happen. So under parameters, what I can do is I can hit smoothing groups. And now by turning that on, now we can see everything gets smoothed out. And then just to make sure that no extra, oops, drop that down to 0. No extras has been applied, we can make sure that that's set at 0 so it doesn't actually add anything to it. And so when we look at this, we now see a smoothed object on there now, just like we have with that first original that I went through and created the smooth side of it. Alright. So hopefully that gives you a better explanation of what smoothing groups can do for you. So it doesn't really increase polys, it just helps smooth faces that are adjacent to each other. Okay, so now we're going to select everything here. And before I do that, I'm just going to save it. We're going to select all those, and I'm going to go ahead and export selected. Put this on my desktop, and this will be for Oliver. So Oliver barriers. Alright, so when I export, this is kind of important because there's a lot of things that I'm working with here. I want to make sure I do have smoothing groups clicked on because I did go ahead and utilize smoothing groups. I do want to make sure that I'm using tangents and binormals. Turbo Smooth will recognize any type of smoothing modifier. I could use selection sets. I want to make sure that converting deformed dummies to bones is selected. But this is the important part right here, which is triangulation and preserve your edge orientation. Again, every polyface is created with 2 triangles, and it's always going to have that hidden edge there. So that's why the preserving edge orientation lets us know which way that edge is facing. So you always want to make sure that's selected. Everything else, you want to make sure that you embed media on, you have lights off and cameras and animations all turned off. And that's it. That's the only thing you have to change in order for it to be ready to be dropped into an engine. So once that's all set, let's go ahead and I'm going to fix everyone else's, and then we'll come back and see how everyone's level layout looks within inside our game. Alright, so I have everyone's level inside Unreal, and just before I place, I want you guys to kind of look at what we're working with here. So whenever we're doing the level layout and we're having Unity figure out what the collision base is, these are some of the things that happen. So you can see, because on Alex's, his barriers are close together, and the way that Unreal calculates is it's calculating based off of an overall position. So if they're spaced out enough, it will actually recognize them as one, but because these are all close together, we end up having kind of a long barrier. Now, earlier with Inside Max, I showed you guys how to kind of I create a script, and when I run that script, it sets a barrier per object based off of what I've selected. So it's a little different, and by doing that, it just cleans up all this. Let's take a look at Derek's. Derek's is spread out, and so you can see, if you have them spread out enough, how each of them are now set up as individual objects, or individual collisions. And this will help when I lay it in there. Let's take a look at the next one, which is Juanita's. And on Juanita's, you can see that I was able to go ahead and bring them all individually in. Now, one of the negative things about utilizing curves is that when you have angles like this, it's not going to calculate it effectively. But for the most part, it's more of a visualization. This just helps with colliding. All right, and then Oliver's. So Oliver's the one that actually went in and created two separate types. So the first one was this one right here, which we can see it fits the box very well. And the other one, I went through and I tried to create a box here, and you can see how it doesn't actually register those center parts. So adding all that work and all that doesn't really help me out here, for at least for this particular one. So you can see they're all individually, all individuals have their own collision boxes on them. And then here's Tony's. So again, you can see we're fine because they're all kind of together, but when you have something like this, how's the player supposed to go in there? I guess if one spawns, he can jump over it. But T-O-N-Y, funny. So let's see how these all play. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drop each one of them in, and you can see why trying to get the correct dimensions in there, why that's important. Okay, I'm going to drop this in here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause while I build all the lighting and everything and all the collisions, and then I'll turn it back on when we start playing. Alright, so first one we bring in, we're going to look at Alex's. So I'm going to hit play. And we can now see the barriers are waist high. I can't get through, which is fine. Let's see how effective his barriers are. So the object is obviously to try and make it so it's difficult for the player, or at least give him somewhat of a challenge. Where's the other one at? Let's see if I can jump over him. So I can jump over him just fine. Oh, there it is, way over there. I'm going to run out of time. Okay. And that's good. That'll just base off of, once the player gets used to the level, they'll be able to get through there a lot quicker. Alright? So let's go ahead and I'm going to select that, delete it, and I'm going to bring in the new level, which will be Derek's. So go ahead and drag that in. And I'm going to go ahead and pause this, and I'm going to go ahead and build everything, and then I'll turn it back on so we can play it. Alright, so now with this built, we're going to take a look at Derek's. Derek went for more traditional, laid everything out, so let's go ahead and play it and see how it looks. You can see that when you don't establish a UV map, you can see what it does to the texture of the object, and that's why doing UVs are so important. But again, the whole purpose was so that, where the heck is it at? There it is. You can see that these end up being in the way. So right there's a problem. It looks like it's not, and that's fine. I'll just have to attach that, but I'm not worried about that. The whole point is trying to get the player, and so I guess he can still collide on it, so that's good. There it is. Alright, I'm going to try this again and see if I can get more than 30 points. Oh. Here's one here. Alright, there's another one. Good. Glad I can still get them. So, even though if they spawn inside, it's not going to deter the player from completing the task. Alright, where are we at? We're at, there we go. And jump. Alright, doing better now. Alright, making sure that I can glide into them. Great. And I think I'm good. So there you go. Alright, let's go for the next one. Let's go ahead and delete that one. And let's bring in Juanita's. Oh man. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and pause it, and I'm going to build this. And then once it's done building, setting up all the collisions and everything, we'll come back and we'll play. Alright, next we have Juanita's. And you can see the importance of making sure you try to get everything within the space. And it could be that I have it rotated, but that's okay. So let's go and see what happens. Alright, so we have a slew. Oh, you gotta make it hard for the player. Oh man, I have to jump over these. Man, I can guarantee you this level would definitely make it tough for the player. But with some practice, they'll be efficient with it. There it is. Alright, let's see if I can at least get 300. If I continuously move, I think I should be able to get it. Oh, where's that? Oh no! Right when I say it, I lose it. Don't tell me it's oh, it's way over here. Alright, at least I have enough time now. Okay, there's over there. I'm getting close. Oh, am I gonna make it? 3, 2, 1. Ah! Oh well. Okay, so that is Juanita's. Let's go and take a look at Oliver's. I'm gonna drop it in, and I'm gonna go ahead and pause it while it renders, and then once it's done rendering, I will go ahead and start it up again. Alright, so now we have Oliver's all rendered. Now let's go ahead and play test this. Alright. So again, I'm trying to see if I can get to 300. But in order to do that, I need to find the where's that? Okay, I definitely lost this one, so let me see if I can find where it's at. Did it spawn inside one of them? I'd see it though, if it did. Huh. Alright, let's try it again. Where's the hiding at? Alright, let me restart it. See if I get lucky this time. No? Still looks like it's spawned in the same place. Ah, there it is. It's hiding. It's just big enough. Aw, and I lost. Couldn't do it. Alright, let's go to the next one. Let's look at 20s. Go ahead and delete that. And I'll bring in Tony's, and again, just like before, I will pause it. So everything can get rendered, and then once it's done, we'll go ahead and play test it. Alright, and last but not least, let's take a look at Tony's. So let's see here. So it looks like we're still getting UV errors within the wrapping itself, which can be fixed, but let's see if I can try to find where the trophy has spawned at. I don't see it. That didn't spawn in there. Alright, let me go ahead and try to reset this and see if it'll reposition itself. There it is. Alright. Goal is 100. Here we go. Or 300, I should say. I don't see it. Cheat. Ah, there it is. Oh, did spawn inside of it. So I just definitely gotta fix that. But that's okay. I can do it on my end. Alright. Getting closer. So hard. At least I got more time. And it looks like it did. That's fine. Alright, so you can see by going through and creating just simple borders that you can create a pathway which creates an obstacle for the player, which creates a little more gameplay, a little more competition, and introduces a little more stress, which, you know, this is where that tangible skill level gets developed as they progress or as they play more and more. So hopefully you guys learned something in this small project, and how it relates with game design and modeling, and kind of how everything comes into a complete circle.